All right.
Beautiful.
Again, welcome to Purpose of this book, David G and David G. We are in the 10th step. And actually, David is going to give us a little recap of what we were studying last week, real quick, before we move on into the 10th step study. So we were we were on page 84, the first paragraph covering step 10 that starts with this thought brings us to step 10.
Welcome, guys. My name is David. I'm a recovered alcoholic and a drug addict. Thank you guys for all being here. Before I do the review of what we talked about in the disciplines of the 10-step disciplines last week, we did talk briefly about the set-aside prayer, what we read prior to this meeting, and where we get that content from out of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And as you all know, there's a bunch of different set-aside prayers, nothing right, nothing wrong about either one. It's just the ones we chose to use here. But I want to make sure that you understand where we specifically get that at in the big book. So the set aside prayer that David read, if you want to go to page 42 in the second paragraph in the chapter more about alcoholism, you're going to see about what I'm talking about here. So if you go halfway down the paragraph, we're talking about, it says, it meant I would have to throw several lifelong conceptions out the window. So in the set aside prayer, we're talking about the second step, basically about letting go of some of my old ideas, my relationship with God, the steps, my unmanageability. I'm trying to get an open mind. So that's one reference to the set aside prayer. The second reference would be on page 52, second paragraph, our bedevilments. These are the things that drive us, but these are the things that I got to let go of here. We find out 31 short pages later that they're replaced by the 9-step promises. And the third part of that was on page 58 in the third paragraph, where it says some of have tried to hold on to their old ideas, and the result was no till we let go. Absolutely, kind of sound familiar when we read how it works in meetings. We're talking about letting go of old ideas, but the result was nil until we let go. Absolutely. So that's just where we get it from. Pages 42, second paragraph, page 52, second paragraph, and page 58, third paragraph. So if you like, and you can come up with your own, doesn't really matter. This one we chose. So to the content where we're at tonight. So we are in the 10th step, and I love the 10th step. I love the fact that we're in the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12 because it is a collaborative effort that came out of the steps 4 through 9. That's where I'm going to live all day long. I'm going to live in the 10th step. So I'm going to point out some things in the 10th step that we talked about last week. And the words we're going to be looking for are spiritual disciplines. And these words are watch, ask, discuss, amend, and turn. So the acronym for that would be WADAT, WADAT. So 84, second paragraph, we talked about having entered the world of spirit, meaning that we've left the world of self halfway through the paragraph. Because what we're doing right here, guys, is really important that I understand that, because a lot of times I hear this in meetings like, should I wait till I get all my amends made before I start step 10? It's a good question. It absolutely is. But it's not the directions of the book. Because in 84, the second paragraph, it says, this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along the way. So that means as I'm making my 9-step amends, I am in 10. Immediately, I'm in 10. Vigorously commence this way of living. This way of living that they're talking about is the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12 as we cleaned up the past. That is, again, a reference that while we're cleaning up the past, we are living in 10, 11, and 12. And then we have entered the world of spirit, meaning we have left the world of self. We now have a relationship not with just God, which is wonderful. It's something I've been striving for. And I do have a personal relationship with my creator by now, but I also have a relationship with you, and I have a relationship with myself. And then it tells me what my next function is. And I circle the word function. I circle the word grow and understanding and effectiveness. These are the words that I want to have because one thing that I would like to bring up too, as I switch gears just a little bit here, is we talk a lot of times in meetings about what topic you want to talk about. Want to talk? Somebody says gratitude, which is a wonderful topic. You want to talk about resentment? Good topic, right? Why don't we talk about the 10-step disciplines? Why don't we talk about the 10-step promises? Why don't we talk about those kind of things in meetings? Because I want to know what your experience with that is. That's what I'm interested in. So back to the text here, it says that we're supposed to, this should continue for our lifetime. So this is about permanent sobriety. If I'm going to have permanent sobriety, I'm going to have to live in 10, 11. I get to live in 10, 11, and 12. And I'm going to circle the word continue because this is an ongoing process. This is where I live all throughout the day. That means step 10 means we never clock out. Never, ever clock out at 10. And what we're looking for is we continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. This looks like the 4th step to me. It is exactly comes from the 4th step. These things are going to crop up, not if, but when. And then here's the first spiritual discipline. We ask, which is a prayer, we ask God at once to remove them. That's the first. The watch is the first one. I'm sorry, I messed up there. So watch is the first spiritual discipline. The second one is ask God at once to remove them. Then we discuss. Discuss is the 3rd spiritual discipline with someone immediately, perhaps a sponsor, close running buddy, maybe even a sponsee. Then we make amends quickly. The 4th spiritual discipline, if we've harmed anyone. And then we resolutely turn. Turn is the 5th spiritual discipline. Our thoughts to someone we can help. Which doesn't mean I have to go to a hospital and ask if there's any drunks available. It just means I should probably pick up the phone, start thinking about someone else, take an action to get out of sight of myself. And then the last thing there says love and tolerance is our code. So I need to be reminded of this constantly. Love and tolerance is my code. That is something that I'm be positively aware of all day long, awake to, and I think that's it. That's all I wanted to touch base upon right there then, David.
You want to set up the 10-step promises?
Yeah. So again, these 10-step promises are wonderful, amazing promises. Bill, I'm gonna bounce around the book a little bit. I'm gonna take us back to other things in the book that Bill talked about. There were the opposite of these, like in our second step. The second step, we came to believe that power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Well, here we are. We come to the 10-step promises. Sanity is now returned. This is now returned. So I think as we go through this word by word, line by line, I think we'll bring up definitions. I'm certain that David will do the same exact thing, and we'll have a lot of clarity in how wonderful these 10-step promises are.
Yeah, and I'll just sort of preamble these 10-step promises a little too, as I like to so often point out the context of where we are in the book when new information is being presented. So, we frequently talk about how this book is broken up into sections. Right? This is a textbook, an instruction manual. It's intended to be read and studied and utilized as a tool, right? And so we're starting in the doctor's opinion, those 10 pages that are in the Roman numerals, and then pages 1 through 23. The content is generally about the physical powerlessness in the first step. Pages 23 to 43 are generally about the mental powerlessness as a part of the first step, right? But then on page 44, up really through 84, we're going to learn about lack of power, unmanageability, right? In the first step, spiritual malady, spiritual illness, and then how we get from this state of unmanageability and lack of power into seeking and getting bestowed, power into us, which is going to solve all my problems. I'm not going to get the power, but power is going to save me. So it's interesting because you think about it, the doctor's opinion, and then the first 44 pages, it's all about my powerlessness over alcohol, right? Or over, cocaine, whatever fellowship you're in. Okay. So it's a big theme, right? I drink, bad stuff happens. When I stop drinking, I start drinking again. And then, in those 40 pages after, 44 to 84, it's all about, again, spiritual illness, lack of power, getting power. And we get through these 9th step promises that we were in a few weeks ago. And really those 9th step promises are the antithesis of being in the spiritual malady. It's what I'm going to look like, the promises I'm going to get as I get spiritually well. And now we're going to get into these 10-step promises. These ones are really great because we're like, oh, I know for the last 40 pages, we've been talking about how you're going to get better spiritually, right? Your head, heart, and your gut. But, remember what brought you in here? What brought me in here? That I couldn't stop drinking. these promisers are going to say, oh, yeah, well, we didn't forget about that little drinking problem that dragged you in here either. Here's some promises about what has happened to the powerlessness, right? As it's manifested, as it's exhibited in my life. Right? So I'm going to read it. And then, like David said, I'm sure we will break this down as always. Okay. Bottom paragraph in 84. So it's full paragraph number 1, 2, 3. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky, nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Abby, what you got?
For that one, I just have seldom, which is rarely.
Okay, thank you. All right, David, you want me to just read the first one? You want to literally go through these?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, let's
Okay,
read one at a time, please.
All right, so here's going back to the start here. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, dash, even alcohol. Go ahead, brother.
So we've ceased fighting anything or anyone. What is last in that sentence? It's alcohol. See, again, the first step says that we're powerless over alcohol, dash, our lives are unmanageable. So alcohol is a problem, but it's not the problem. My unmanageability is my problem here. But we're going to see here that sanity is going to be restored here in the next sentence. But what we're talking about here, what am I not also fighting? You know, I'm in the world of the spirit now. There's no room for me to be fighting any longer. I don't need to be fighting anything or anyone. I mean, to be thinking about those people are children of God, that I am supposed to be of maximum service to God and all his kids. And I'm supposed to do that all the time here. Also, another thing I'm not fighting, my own defects of character. Because remember in 6 and 7, I'm praying for the willingness for God to remove them, and I'm giving him consent to remove them in 7. He's not asking me for my help in step 7. I'm not his helper removing my defects of character. I'm giving him consent. The same thing process is still going on here. You know, when these things crop up, they will crop up, not when, but if. I'm still going to, not going to try to fight them. I have an awakened spirit. That is a very key statement to make because it's true for me anyways, that I'm not fighting any of these things any longer. I can't remember the last time I've had a disagreement, an argument, or any drag out, none of that. I just can't remember because of my awakened spirit. If I'm honestly living in 10, those disciplines that we read about before this paragraph, I will receive these promises. I can't explain it other than the fact that automatically means that I don't have to think about it. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but automatically means I don't have a whole lot to do with it. This is about a relationship with God. And step 11, when we get to that, is about a conscious contact with God. This is what I'm striving for, to have a conscious contact with that power all day long. So as Mark Houston says, it's like being in church, and not the church of my childhood, the church of my freedom and my joy, not excitement. Excitement is short-lived, too quickly. Joy means all day long. I can feel this presence of God about me, and he's available to me 24/7.
So this is a really important statement, and this concept needs to be smashed home with newcomers, that I've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. How many times, gang, have we sat in a meeting and you hear somebody who's new? It's even more tragic when they're not brand new, that maybe they've been around for a few weeks or a few months, and they're doing a share and they say, oh, I know that every day I'm going to have to fight not to drink. I'm like, no. If that is what you think, the fellowship around you has failed. I and everybody else in that meeting have failed to educate you on how this thing works. We've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. I couldn't imagine. I would have jumped off the roof. If my life consisted of the last 20 years that every day I woke up and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to fight not to drink today. I'm going to fight not to drink today. That sounds like an absolute nightmare. I'd rather be dead, speaking for myself. I'm not going to speak for you guys, but that sounds tragically terrible. This is why David and I are so passionate about the message here in the book. And we're so passionate about taking all the steps, doing all the work, not just going through the steps ourselves, but taking other people through the steps and then studying the traditions and helping shape strong home groups and then getting into service and learning about the concepts and like everything, giving. Because if I give and I follow all this direction and I really focus my life around serving God and all his kids, which is you guys, I'm not going to be fighting. I know this is just a line here in a book in black and white on paper. You can believe it or not. My experience, this happens. It happened to me and happened to a lot of other people that I know. I do not fight drinking. Every once in a while, does it occur to me to have a drink? Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Every once in a while, someone will be drinking a glass of wine or something near me and I'll be like, smells good. And then you know what happens? I'm like, but I don't drink, right? I'm not going to say, hey man, let me have a head off that. No, God is, he's part of a working part of my mind at this point. He is not going to allow me to seriously consider drinking. An idea is one thing. An obsession is something else. The obsession's lifted. That's why I'm not fighting alcohol anymore. Guys, this is not about physical sobriety. We bring these guys up so frequently. If you have never listened to Joe and Charlie, Big Book Comes Alive, please, you can get them in podcasts. You can find them on YouTube. These are the guys, after my opinion, after Bill and Bob, they did more for AA than anybody else because they broke down this book and these steps so simple for a big dummy like me, right? And Charlie takes great pains to explain this is not an AA. It's for ease, I'll talk about Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is not a not drinking program. It is a life-changing program, of which one of the benefits, one of the side effects, is that I'm going to be relieved of my desire to drink. This thing's intended to change everything about me, not just help me put the plug in the jug. Next statement. For by this time, sanity will have returned. So I'll start this one off, David, if it's all right. So guys, going back to step 2, we talked about this, 8 months ago, whenever we were on step 2. The sanity that's being talked about here is the same sanity that's talked about in the second step, right? We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We're not talking about sanity in terms of just total judgment and discernment for everything in life. Did I do lots of things that were quote unquote crazy? Yes, of course. I bet all you guys did too. There's no question. The sanity that's being talked about here, the sanity that returns, is my decision making as it relates to what would happen if I picked up a drink. Right? As God is now, because I've sought him and I'm now one with him, right? He's always been here, right? Deep down inside, we read about that on page 55. We've gone back there many, many times. I was going to say he was hiding out there. God wasn't hiding. I was just doing everything in my power to dump enough alcohol and cocaine and chocolate cake and everything else on top of him to keep him quiet, right? But because I've now embraced him, right? And God is now a part of me and how I think and how I operate. When, like I just said, ooh, that smells like a good beer. Ooh, that smells like a good wine. God tells me and it tells my brain, yeah, but you don't drink, right? I know what would happen. I can tell the true from the false. That's the sanity that's being restored to me at this point.
So by this time, sanity would have returned. So let's go back a couple pages in the book so we understand exactly what Bill's talking about when he talks about insanity, which is, let's go to page 36 on the bottom of the page in the third paragraph you got. If you guys have read the book, you know Jim's story. He's a car salesman who lost his car dealership to someone else. And let's even read these 2 paragraphs if it's okay. We'll just stay in the italic
Do it.
writing though. So 36, second paragraph, italic writing, Joe and Charlie say, those are neon signs. We need to pay attention to those things. Suddenly, if I knew what suddenly looked like, I called my sponsor today. I'd say, hey, Judd, suddenly's going to show up at 1 p.m. today. I need you to be available for me. I don't know what suddenly looks like. Suddenly means that I stopped praying. Suddenly means I haven't done any work, maybe 1, 2, and 3. Suddenly means that I'm certainly don't have any sponsees. Suddenly means I'm not going to meetings. Suddenly I'm not helping others. Those are the things what suddenly looks like. The thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. That is a lie. That is a delusion. Jim knows the truth about himself, that once he puts a drink in his body, he breaks out in craving. He knows that. He's worked step 1. He knew that he did. So that's the delusion. So I ordered a whiskey, poured it in the milk. I vaguely is insanity. Vaguely. That's an important word there. Sense that I was not being any too smart, but felt reassured I was taking whiskey on a full stomach. That's complete insanity. So I'm going to bounce around. Like I said, let's go to page 37 and more about alcoholism. 36, I'm sorry, in the bottom of the page, 36 in the third paragraph, again in the italic writing. Right at the bottom of the page there. We had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic. As I explained, he knew about alcoholism. He knew that once he put alcohol in his body, something abnormal happens to him, that he breaks out in this craving. And prior to that, the obsession of the mind, without his permission, without his consent, he's picking up, which is complete insanity, even though he knows the truth. No power, no choice, no control. Back to the text. Yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. That's delusion and insanity mixed together. That's the milk and the whiskey. That's the decision. It was vaguely thought about. He picked up. Here's Bill's description of what insanity looks like in the next paragraph, 37, first full paragraph. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? Understand why I have no power, no choice, no control. I will have those mental blank spots. We can go back to page 24 if you guys want to follow me along. Again, in the italic writing in the first paragraph. And I'll read the second paragraph also too. The first paragraph, it says, the fact that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink or in thinking. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times, if not at all, to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering, humiliation, even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. Then the next paragraph, the almost certain consequences that following taking even a glass of beer do not crowd in the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazily and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. These worn out ideas that I keep using over and over again. It's going to be different this time. It's not going to be different this time. I know the truth. I know alcoholics who've gone out because of suddenly, with 20 years of sobriety, they went out again because of that old threadbare idea. You know where they ended up at? In the graveyard. You know where they ended up at? In the insane asylum. That's where they ended up at, because we don't necessarily pick up right where we left off. We progress past this because as we sit here in sobriety, and as my alcohol is running parallel with me, and I know people, and I've done this too, I put a toe over in their lane from time to time, but I've never jumped fully in that lane of the alcoholism. They jump in with both feet in that lane of alcoholism. They are going to pick up a drink, and I am going to die. Because I'm certainly not coming back to Alcoholics Anonymous after a few 24 hours and say, I need help. I'm going to drink myself to death. I know this. Back to the text here, it says, there is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting a hand on a hot stove. If I burn myself one time on a hot stove, I know exactly where that hot stove's at, no matter whose house I'm in, no matter if I did it on my stove or whoever's stove, I'll know where your stove's at every time I walk in your house, anyone's house, even for the first time. I'm not going to put my hand on a hot stove. But when it comes to alcohol, with no power, no choice, no control, I can pick up a drink. I have to have available to me this power. And as I pointed out back to the text in 84 in the second paragraph, when we're talking about these disciplines, I asked you if you'd like to circle the word continue. Continue is a time element, and it means once or immediately. I have to do this stuff. I have to always be on looking, watching, asking, discussing, and amending and turning. I have to always be doing this stuff. It becomes second nature for me to do it. Don't get me wrong. I am safe and protected. We're going to find out in a little bit. But that's because I have available to me and I have a relationship with this power today in my life. So the sanity has returned because in step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. Here in step 10, the sanity is returned.
There's 2 key words in what David was taking us back to in the context for this. Suddenly and vaguely, right? So what did we see with those 2 words, suddenly and vaguely, right? The thought, the crazy, insane thought came on suddenly. What came on vaguely? And the judgment, the decision making that this may not be such a good idea. Which one overpowers us? The sudden or the vague? Right? Ask yourselves, when moved, when impulsive, when forced into a decision without thinking, right? What's more alluring? What's more appealing? Well, the suddenly powerful thought that hops into my head. Or the vague thing. Vague is something I tease out once I'm thinking better. Once again, God's become a working part of my mind. Then I can sense and this is like a big part of my 10-step process, especially in like a work or a marriage related item. I start getting this little vague sense as the conversation's escalating, as I'm starting to forward think about what my response is going to be. I'm like, I have a vague notion that I should keep my flipping mouth shut here in a minute when the other person stops talking, right? And now, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, I'm able to do just that. Okay. Next statement. Promise. We will seldom be interested in liquor. This is a very black and white statement. And I talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago. What is listen, some of you guys here are alcoholics, recovered alcoholics, just like me. I'm watching Scott chugging something from a bottle. See you in the old days, my man, right? Good form. So, this is what I talked about. What is the most natural thought for an alcoholic? To have a drink. It's okay. If you sometimes occurs to you, as it sometimes does for me, to have, soda water. We know, brother. To have a drink, that's okay, right? Again, fancy restaurant, you smell the wine. What I always say is we have these long, brutal, cold winters here in Illinois, and then when it's springtime and the weather's nice, I go downtown, and all the bars and restaurants open up their outdoor patios on the sidewalk, and you go by, and people are drinking those giant wheat beers or those glasses, right, with the orange wedge or the lemon wedge, which they take like an hour and a half to drink one of those, right? You can tell they're not our people. But I always like, oh man, it's like a warm summer day. I bet that wheat beer would taste awesome. And then I'm like, not for me. Seldom interested. Once in a while, yeah. But then it passes. I move on. I don't struggle. It's not like, well, I wonder if it's just like, moving on. I've never been a cigar smoker. Sometimes I smoke when I'm with my brother-in-law, my father-in-law, they're smoking cigars. I'm like, kind of smells good. But then I'm like, but I'm not going to have one because it doesn't make me feel good, right? It's going to give me an upset belly. Same thing. I actually have some judgment, some decision-making ability, some discernment about what to do, what not to do. I want to have a cookie. I want to have a couple cookies. Well, David, remember, diabetic. Maybe better stop at 2. All right, we'll push it to 4. For the love of God, don't eat the whole sleeve, right? Same thing, guys.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that, and I don't remember the speaker that talked about it because I brought it up on, about the touching the hot stove. But if maybe you don't remember, David, but okay, so if I touch the hot stove, if that's cocaine, that stove, I got my hand on there, and I got my next hand on there, and the next burner, I got my leg, I got stumps pretty soon. I'm laying on the thing. That's what happens to me, dude. I will burn myself up. But right. I know what happens when I touch the hot stove. That is my drug of no choice, cocaine and alcohol. But it says we will seldom be interested in liquor. I have been on so many business trips where there's plenty of open bar liquor on beaches, sunsets and people are drinking sunrise. I totally would have been drinking around the clock, but we're going to find out in the next paragraph, all the rest of these promises that come true for us out of my own power. I could not have pulled that off. Why? Because of that peculiar mental twist that I think is on page 33 of our book. That's why I have that. Rob will have it in a second. I'm pretty sure. And I'm probably wrong. Excuse me on that page. But anyways, yeah. So even if I'm tempted means a thought. I have a thought. It's not an obsession. An obsession is a thought, but an obsession takes up the whole Zoom screen here. And I can't see any of you guys. And I'm going to get my drink. I'm going to go through you, around you, into whatever I got to do to get my drink. In untreated alcoholism, I have no power, no choice, no control. Today, I have a relationship with power today. I don't have to pick up. It's just a drink and someone else is enjoying it because they don't break out in crazy. They never break out in craving. Never. And I do, and I know the truth, and I love being sober. I love waking up in the morning, getting on my knees and asking God to keep me clean and sober, to direct my thinking and asking him how I can be of service to you today and all your kids. And then going out there and doing my job as a recovered alcoholic, being an agent of God. I wouldn't give that up for the world. But those are practices. Those are repetitions here. And so is 10 and 11 and 12. I have to practice these things every day. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, and I don't do this because I'm superstitious. I have never missed a day on my knees and talking to God in the morning. I've never missed a day on my knees thanking God at night. I missed plenty of time during the day not practicing the 10-step disciplines of watch, ask, discuss, amend, and turn. Many of them. But the nice part about that is we have an 11-step evening review that we can do for all those things that I've missed throughout the day. So, yeah, even if be seldom interested, very seldom have I ever been interested in liquor.
So seldom interested, and even if it occurs to us, right? It goes back to the top of Roman numeral 29. Don't have to go there. David just mentioned this. Drinks which they see others taking with impunity. Other people can drink. People can sit in that beer garden. You know what else they can do? They can drink too much. They can get drunk. Normal people are allowed to get drunk if that's what they feel like doing, or if they even had an oops, right? But in the face of consequences, right? When they're hungover the next day and they feel lousy at work, I bet they don't drink again that night, right? Normal. We don't take a position saying people shouldn't drink, right?
No.
We don't get into that. Drink up, enjoy yourselves, right? I'd prefer you not to get behind the wheel of a car, personal preference, but drink up, have fun, go for that effect produced, everybody. If you're not like me, if tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. I mean, I think we talked about this, but I don't know. Anything else?
We did. Yeah, that's cool. No.
Yeah, we sort of melded it in because, yeah, it's a lot of some of these promises is sort of, reinforcing the same promise. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. So we talked a little bit about what does it mean to react sanely and normally. That when I'm walking along the street and I see people in the beer garden having the wheat beer, and I'm like, man, that would good. My sane reaction is, good for them, not for me. And I'm on to thinking about the next thing, which is I'm thinking about myself, right? Because I'm in my ego most of the time. And normally, which is that I just recognize it's not for me. I'm not fighting. So how would it, if I didn't react sanely, what would it look like? An insane reaction to me having a thought about a drink is that I'd be like, it's been 20 years. I wonder if I could have just a beer because it is hot today and I bet that would make me feel good. That would be an insane reaction. Okay. So my sane reaction is I don't drink, so I'm not going to have one. A normal response is, again, not for me. Hope they have fun. What would be an abnormal response? How about fighting? How about as I walk away, I'm like, God damn it, I'm so resentful because I can't drink and I wish I could drink and I'm fuming and tore up about it. That would be a abnormal response for me, right? And then if I persist in that, it's probably graduated from a thought into an obsession, right? Like David was just talking about. So in my spiritually fit state, I have a sane and normal response. And we will find that this has happened automatically. So I've gotten into some spirited debates about what this means. This does not suggest, and you know, I had spirited debates about what it means. We'll find that this has happened automatically, and then a few lines down, you know, this has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. This is not saying that I haven't done the legwork to get to this point, right? All of the promises that I get are the result of me getting and growing my conscious contact with God as I understand him. But what is suggested here when it says it happened automatically is my interpretation of this is that when I do think about drinking, I have an automatic, sane, normal response that has developed because I've gotten to this point where God has become a working part of my mind. Okay. It's not that I have to manufacture my reaction to think, okay, flow chart. I thought of having a drink. What am I supposed to do? I got to get out my book. You know, how do I react? No, it's not like that. At the beginning, it might be like that. You guys, at the beginning, you ever get freaked out by something like that? And you had to call your sponsor or call one of your running buddies, like, man, I feel like I'm going to drink, right? Because I was in early days or weeks. That's pretty normal. You know, I remember I went to a wedding. I was real nervous about going, and a bunch of my buddies and my sponsor were like, go to the wedding, go to the ceremony, get to the introductions, split, right? Don't stick around for dinner if you don't want. Don't stick around for the dancing and all that. Call us from the wedding. So I did it. I followed directions, right? I needed that at the beginning. I had not gotten to God. I was still white knuckling it, right? I had to transition from white knuckle to God, and thankfully I did. It's okay to have this problem at the beginning. But the goal here is to get to God, to be fit. And I have this automatic, sane, normal, healthy response to alcohol that a sane, normal, healthy non-alcoholic would have, which is, oh, I'm working today and I'm taking my lunch break to go get a hamburger, and I see people drinking, but I can't get a beer because I'm in the middle of my workday. That's a sane, normal response for someone who's working in an office. I get one of those too. I can't drink. It's not for me. Moving on.
Yeah, not a lot to add to that other than the fact that I have a whole mind. My whole mind now is recognizing the truth, is what that means for me, that I react sanely and normally. Like this new mind that I got. Oh, and Steve came in late because he just got off work. Top of page 85, Steve. I seen you pop in. So sane and normally. So that means, so I've had this actually happen to me where I was, I cut my own yard and I take pride in it. And in the past, it wasn't really good long before I got sober. And I'll tell the story briefly here. Have you ever had those situations? I don't care how long you've been sober, where the wind was blowing, there's certain smell, the sun's hitting you a certain way, and it reminded you of a good time, you know, that you had when you were drinking and drugging early in sobriety or before you got sober. And I had that, and then all of a sudden I had this sane and normal thought that goes, yeah, you did that. You went and did way too much cocaine right in the middle, cutting the grass, and you drank a 6-pack of beer. And the next thing you know, the lawnmower's out in the yard, and you're too paranoid to go out there and put it back in the shed because you can't leave the house. It's like, dude, that's what I remember, you know, because I'm reacting sanely normally. I get this mind of recognizing the truth. It's just a thought. You know, but if I'm living in those disciplines of 10, 11, or 10 here, and I'm watching, asking, and discussing attorney on a regular basis, I will have this sane and normal thinking. It just will be. And they're very fleeting. I don't romance these things either. That's very important to do. And I tell myself early in sobriety, I would pick up the phone early and call you and tell you every detail of that thing. And if it lasted more than 30 seconds, my sponsor said, "You're romancing it, bro. You're in really dangerous territories." So that's just a thought. It's a passing thought. I know the truth from the false today because sanity has been returned. But my sanity will be going away if I don't live in 10, 11, and 12. If I'm not working with others all the time, you know, if I'm not sharing my story with the newcomer and working with others so he can relate to me, you know, and I can relate to him. I got to find people to work with. I got to get to live meetings and Zoom meetings and all kinds of meetings and praying about having new people in my life today to remind me what my purpose is. I have a purpose and why we were chosen. We are chosen people. There's a piece of literature out there that talks about why we were chosen. And I love that. It's one of my favorite pieces of literature. because we are just chosen, armed with the facts about ourselves, to carry this message to the alcoholic who still suffers, and then watch them spring up and carry the message to other people too, coming out of this text of this big book here. And it's just amazing watching this happen. And I'm not altruistic, so don't think this, but I get to sponsor double-digit people, and half of my guys have been over 20 years sober. They still call me on a regular basis. They still have the same thoughts as I have once in a while, but they all work with others. And I know I'm getting ahead of myself too, but it's so important that I'm always constantly on page 20. It talks about our constant thought of others. I have to have that all the time here. Then I will have sane and normal thinking. That's all I got to do.
We will see that our new attitude, hold on, let me start that over. We will see that our new attitude, wanted to emphasize that, toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes! Exclamation. Go ahead, David, start this one.
So yeah, the automatically part right before that automatically means I don't have to think about it, right? I don't have to. Automatically happens. I didn't go through these steps to have a changed attitude towards liquor. David talked about that early on. If you have liquor, maybe not this group here. I hope that you're sober members, you don't want to have liquor. But if I'm out with friends who can have a glass of beer or a wine, I don't have a changed attitude whether or not they should drink or not drink. I went through these steps to have a personality change sufficient enough to recover from a hopeless state of mind and body. So I can have a personal relationship with God. And we see that this new attitude that I have, liquor has been given without any thought or effort on our part. And first time I read that, I went to myself, man, I did a 4-step. And I did this really long 5th step with my sponsor. You mean I don't get to take any credit for this? This new thought, this new process I'm going through? No, it just comes. The next sentence is going to tell us what that is. And I'll give you a definition of what I think a miracle looks like. But it just comes without any thought or effort on my part. Again, I have access and available to me this power. But if I don't live in 10 and 11 and 12, I will lose sight of that. And I will start running the show again. And I'm in dangerous territory when that happens.
This is a direct reference to the spiritual awakening, guys, right? As I regularly talk about, if you're new, please understand, we've got 12 steps that are intended to be worked in order, and then we sort of continuously work them, kind of like a clock that keeps going around. The promise is the spiritual awakening is not a waterfall moment at the end once they start working step 12. Rather, the spiritual awakening, in my experience and experience of others I've seen, begins in step 2 and widens from there, right? So what's being talked about here is what we so frequently, and I'm not going to take us back, I'll just reference page 27. As a result of having a vital spiritual experience, my thoughts, my feelings, and my attitudes will get cast out with new ones. That's what's being talked about here. It doesn't mean I haven't been into action and taken the steps and been of service and all those things that David was enumerating. Of course I have. That, my new attitude toward God, is how God then uses his power to make me a better person. Right? If I was able to give myself a new attitude toward liquor, I would just do that and I would not be here with you guys. Right? But I don't have that power. It's my dilemma. I need a higher power. That is the miracle of it. Oh boy, let's talk miracle. What do you have to say about miracles, David?
First of all, I didn't perform it. That's the one thing that I gotta be very clear on. Because if I could have done it, guys, come with me on this one. If you could have performed the miracle of stop drinking on your own power long before you heard all the people that you did, wouldn't you have done it? Wouldn't you just went, I'm gonna drink like a lady, I'm gonna drink like a gentleman, I'm gonna drink like a they or them? Wouldn't you have done that? Of course you would have. I didn't want to heart and hurt of the people. I didn't perform the miracle. This is something that is outside of myself. As David said, the same thing happens on page 27 with my feelings, my attitudes, all these things in my life. I don't perform that either. No human power can produce that either. It says a miracle is an event, divine in human affairs. That is unbelievable that God is even considering performing a miracle for someone like me that has harmed so many people, including myself. That is amazing that happens for me today. So that's all I got on that. Are you still here, David? I think you would drop off. Oh, you're there. Okay. He's muted. There you go.
Okay,
You're up now.
better. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, internet went out. Had to go back to backup internet. Okay. I lost what you were talking about. I'm guessing you talked about miracles.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm a little kerfuffled here. Okay. We are not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. Go ahead, David. Just take us back.
I think it's just re-emphasizing again the first sentence in that promise is we cease fighting anything or everyone, even alcohol. Like I don't have to fight this thing. This comes natural now for me today. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. But I'm not putting myself, okay, here. I am not going to a crack house. Period. The end. I am not going. If you're at a crack house, I'm still not going to pull you out. That's just me. I know people that have gone to crack houses and pulled people out of them before. I'm just not going because my luck is I'm going to be there when the cops show up. I'm going to handcuffs too that night because I could be the most sober person there, but they're taking everybody in the paddy wagon. I just know that. Or I could get shot, and I'm just not putting myself in position. Plus, on 12-step calls, we never go alone, period, the end. But not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. So as long as I'm spiritually fit, it tells me I can go anywhere any other man can go. But I need to check myself to see if I'm spiritually fit enough. I need to have a sponsor. I need to counsel with other people. As David said about that wedding, I was 2 years sober. I went to a wedding. I wasn't spiritually fit enough. About a half hour in, I called somebody and they said, dude, you need to go. You're going to drink. And I had to tell my wife, who was dialed up to the nines, looked beautiful that night, was waiting to dance, waiting to have another glass of champagne. I go, I got to go. I'm going to drink. And she was so mad at me. I'm 2 years sober, 2.5 years sober. I followed that guy's direction because I might not have drank that night. But suddenly what occurred to me the next week when she looked at me and gave me that evil eye about something or brought up that wedding night or my kids are pulling their hair or my boss gave me a direction that I didn't necessarily like, I will justify my behavior and I will pick up that drink and that drug again. I need to stay spiritually fit. We're going to get to this part very quickly here. And because I am not going to have the spiritual condition in my life if I don't do this work every day.
Yeah, I'll just quickly underscore a couple of the points that David made and what I already talked about it, that I'm not fighting this at any point. This is not the promise that's being given, and that's certainly not the promises that we're actually reading here. Right? I'm going to have a life-changing spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, an entire psychic change that is going to make sure that I'm not fighting and I'm not avoiding. Right? We just read. I'm going to have a sane, normal response. Like sane, normal, non-alcoholic people. This is what I'm going to have an approximation of, right? I'm always an alcoholic, but I'm recovered, so I don't behave like an alcoholic when it comes to drinking alcohol. David, if you get a sec, can you set me either back as the host or as a co-host?
I gotta look at. I gotta look at my notes. Well, everything's changed on here for me too. So
okay.
Hold on a second. Yeah. Hold on, guys. There we go. You got her?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. Sorry, guys.
We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected.
So that is one of my favorite promises because I can relate to it because I have young baby grandchildren. Like I have a little baby. He's 1 year old. And, there's nothing cuter. I mean, he's a boy, so he's full of energy and he wants to go, go, go all the time, crawling all over the place, getting ready to take his first steps. And when he's tired, he'll snuggle up and put his head on my shoulders. I'm a grandparent. Like, this is unbelievable. I got 3 grandchildren, 19, 10, 11, and 1. And when I go to put him down, I give him a bottle. And I hold him in my arms. I get to do this. Like, I don't remember doing this with my kids. I probably did, but I don't really remember doing it because I wasn't sober quite yet. But when I do, I put him in this crib and he's safe and he's protected because that's what we provide for him. That's what God provided for me to provide for him. And he's safe and protected. And he feels safe with Grandpapa. He feels safe with Mimi, my wife. He feels safe with us. protected. That's how I feel all day long. I am safe and protected with this power in my life today. I don't fear picking up a drink and drunk. We can have permanent sobriety. It's all contingent upon my relationship with God and with you and with myself. I have a personal relationship with all three of those things today. I'm not in conflict with any of those things all day long. And I invite God in the morning, like I talked about here. Safe and protected. That is just such a wonderful place to be. I feel that way every single day.
Time check, 7 minutes.
Okay.
We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. So, anybody here ever swear off from drinking? Anybody here ever make that, with or without a solemn oath, right? I always talk, when I give my shares or when Dave and I go to treatment center and we cover the first step, I talk about I come to around 7:00 on a Sunday night, right? Because I finally passed out at like noon on a Sunday from partying for 2 straight days. And I'm like, man, I'm never doing that again. Never doing that again. Like talking to myself in the third person in the mirror. David, you're stronger than that. David, you're smarter than that. David, you're screwing up your life. You are done. 7:00, put me on the lie detector, pass with flying colors. And then at 7:05, one of my buddies calls me and says, dude, why aren't you at the bar? Chicago Bears are on Sunday Night Football. Get over here. Can I tell the truth from the false? Do I keep my solemn oath? No. I go to the bar and I'm right back to the races, right? So swearing off, I did it 10,000 times, but I broke my oath 10,001 times. So I don't even have to swear off. Now, let me be clear. The point of Alcoholics Anonymous and 12-step recovery is to overcome that powerlessness and that unmanageability that's killing me. So this is a lifetime commitment I'm making, but I live life a day at a time. And I don't ask anyone to swear off. I just say, you done? Are you done with the crazy life? You done good and for all, right? Because if you are, cool. If you're not, that's okay too. I'll be here when you are done. But I'm not going to ask anybody to make some sort of pledge or oath because our word is garbage. Mine is anyway when it comes to swearing off. So why would I ask an alcoholic to swear off drinking, right? The problem's just been removed. It doesn't exist for me, right? I'm not interested in drinking. I'm not opposed to drinking. I don't drink. It's really that simple.
Yeah, I don't. What's the problem here? Well, in the world of the spirit, remember in the disciplines that we talked about back on page 84 in the second paragraph, in the world of spirit, drinking alcohol and living in the world of spirit cannot coexist. Not for me, anyways.
Yeah.
The problem's been removed. Meaning the process of the first 9 steps in my life and living the disciplines of 10 here, because that's where we're at, it's been removed. The obsession, the malady, gone. And just for me anyways, it was gone when I was 3 months sober. I had worked all 12 steps. I've had a spiritual awakening. I'm living in the world of the spirit to the best of my ability that God has given me. But that's not necessarily true. Some obsessions do last a lot longer. Dr. Bob's, a couple years, right?
Yeah.
But the malady didn't exist for him. The malady didn't exist for him. He was out making amends quickly, right away, within a few days. So was Bill. Like, I got to get busy and get out there and do the thing. But the malady is gone. The obsession will be removed in God's time because I don't have the power to do that. No human power can produce that either.
All right, big finish here with our last 4 minutes. I'll just round out the paragraph. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience, the experience of the people who wrote this book. And by the way, that's our experience too. I can speak for David and Rob and Abby on this one for sure. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Go ahead, Broseph.
All right, so we are neither cocky nor are we afraid. This is our experience, not our theory. This is our experience, the first 100's experience. I'm going to listen to that. That is how we react so long as we stay in fit spiritual condition. This is a deadly warning. It is really a deadly warning because what if I don't do anything for my daily spiritual condition? Am I in danger? You bet I am. I could be I could have suddenly crop up. I could. So this is this is a warning, and Bill's telling us to stay in fit spiritual condition. He's not giving us direction, but he's telling us this is a deadly warning. I need to stay in fit spiritual condition. How do I do that? Directions in the book. That's all I got there, bro.
Yeah, and I'll just guys, why am I neither cocky nor am I afraid? Because those two characteristics I was flush with. The reason why I'm not cocky nor afraid is, again, by this point, I've gotten so much better. Am I cured? No. Am I ever cured? No. But I am recovered, and I'm going to continue to grow, right? In all ways, as I continue to seek God, I'm going to get healthier, my head, my heart, and my gut. So I'm not going to be dwelling in these kinds of dangerous places like ego, which is cockiness, right? And fear. And again, I said, this is my experience. I know this is David's experience and a number of other people here, people that I know well, right? Rob and Ashton and Abby and some of you other guys have been coming around. I know RJ, right? These are all people out here in Illinois. Well, not Rob. He's up north somewhere, but my point is, yeah, Toronto. But this is my point, is that I know lots of people that this is their experience. They don't think about drinking, right? Our brothers over there in Asia on the other side of the globe, Scott and Tony and these guys, doesn't matter where we are. We have all had this experience. We got to God. We stay close to God. So I'm not cocky or afraid about my relationship with alcohol. What is my relationship with alcohol today? I just don't have one. I just literally don't have one. And this is how I react, neither cocky nor afraid, sanely and normally. I stay safe and protected if I keep in fit spiritual condition. This book is loaded with promises. Almost all of them are contingent upon, first, that I approach the work thoroughly and honestly, and then secondarily, that I stay in fit spiritual condition. All hell's going to break loose if I don't stay in fit spiritual experience, because as we take pains to talk about so frequently, alcohol's a problem for me. Cocaine's a problem for me. Sex and spending and overeating and fighting and raging and all these things can be problems for me too. I'm powerless over many things. All problems. You know what my main problem is? My life is unmanageable. I'm spiritually ill, spiritually sick in my unrecovered state. I got to get spiritually right, and then everything else gets sorted out. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rob.